Severe weather awareness and preparedness in an RV, sounds in an RV during a storm, creating a family plan before severe weather strikes, emergency first aid kits, and weather safety slogans. All of that and much more on this week's episode of the Soul RV Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of the Soul RV Podcast. I am Mark.
And I am Angie with Soul RV. Last week, in part one of this two-part series on why severe weather awareness while RV camping is a must, we told you the importance of knowing the severe weather risk for your area, different types of weather risks in every season in the Midwest, and understanding severe weather alerts from the National Weather Service. If you have ever had storm damage on your sticks and bricks home, a vehicle, or an RV, you understand the frustration that can come from dealing with your claim.
Definitely. That is why we want to share a little information about adjusterforyou.com. Nearly 95% of people have never heard of a public adjuster before. Your insurance company is a business, and businesses profit by controlling their money and minimizing their expenses. The claim payment that you deserve is an expense, and they want to minimize that. The insurance companies have an adjuster to protect their liability. Shouldn't you make the same decision? You should control your claim and make sure someone is working for your benefit. This is where adjusterforyou.com comes in. Like your insurance agent, a public adjuster is a state licensed insurance professional. The public adjuster represents you and benefits you when a claim occurs. Adjusterforyou.com is a fiduciary, meaning they put their clients' needs first and never their own. Check them out today at adjusterforyou.com.
Well, this week is officially Severe Weather Awareness Week in Kansas. It runs from March 1st through 5th in 2021. If you are in Kansas and would like to check out the 2021 Kansas Severe Weather Awareness Information Packet, you can do that at weather.gov, and a link to that information packet is also available on our website and this podcast description.
Today, we are going to move on to the biggest, most important part of the series with understanding how to prepare for severe weather before it arrives. Like we had said in our last episode, severe weather can happen at any time. It can happen in your sticks and bricks home where you may have a basement or a safe place to go. Moreover, it can happen in an RV. In addition to this, it can occur without warning. That is why Soul RV focuses greatly on severe weather awareness and preparedness in an RV. Understanding how you can be prepared before it hits is the next step in being prepared for when it arrives. This includes preparing your campsite, having a family plan in place, and being prepared for an emergency situation to the best of your ability. It is time for TNT.
Tip number one is that if you are in an RV, a mobile home, or a vehicle, do not try to run out a tornado in your car. I think that's pretty obvious. Get to the nearest shelter. If a shelter is not available, as a last resort, either stay in the vehicle with your seatbelt on, put your head down below the windows, and cover it with your hands, or lie flat in a ditch and cover your head with your hands. I want to stress again, that is only if a shelter is not available, and that is your last resort.
Tip number 2, if you're in an area in a flash flood, move to higher ground. Stay away from storm drains, ditches, streams. Stay away from flooded areas. Never walk or swim into flooded waters. And remind parents and adults that driving into water of unknown depths and around barricades is dangerous, especially at night. Turn around, do not drown. Now, usually those floods come from a strong thunderstorm. Thunderstorms can be very noisy inside and out of an RV, and if you're not used to those sounds, it can be a bit intimidating. Our second trip in the Soulmobile motorhome was a good example of a noisy trip we were not used to. That trip did not go quite like we had planned. We were having a great time camping and learning about this new motorhome. We did have some tire issues, but we managed to make it from one campground to another without any issues.
Right.
However, when we arrived at this campground, the sites we wanted were taken. So we got a campsite that was a lot more open and up on the highest of 3 tiers within a campground. It was a great campsite with lots of space. However, the wind was annoying because of the openness. When another campsite with a better nature view opened on a lower level of the campground, we decided to move to that space. Little did we know at that time we'd be very thankful for being down this lower level of the campground. This campsite had large evergreen trees and other trees blocking the wind. This made us feel comfortable knowing that there were storms predicted to be in our area soon. Not knowing how severe the storms could get, I called a friend to ask to come to their home because they have wheelchair accessibility and we would need that for Aiden. Of course, the answer was yes. So that put our minds at a little bit of ease because we had just been put into a severe thunderstorm watch.
We were not having any bad weather at the time, so we decided to take a walk around the area with Aiden and our 4 dogs at that time. We stopped and we talked with some friends that we had made on this visit, and we were relieved when one of them actually offered to swing by us to shelter if we needed it later. This was extremely helpful and calming in my nerves because this was the first trip for us in a motorhome with storms predicted, and not having an extra vehicle to seek shelter with made me a little nervous.
When we returned to the motorhome, we double-checked the NOAA weather alarm was set for our location. There were severe storm warnings in areas around us, but none except for the watch for us still. Started to get some wind and a little bit later, some rain. That is when the severe storm started getting closer to us. We were issued a thunderstorm warning for our area, including 60-mile-an-hour wind and quarter-size hail within that storm. I made sure everything was secure outside, and Angie made sure that we had all of our emergency equipment in one specific location and an easy grab bag in case we needed to leave quickly.
You all know how I said a few weeks ago how I'm always leaving the awning out. This time, I didn't do that.
No, that was me. I had some equipment outside and the grill, and I wanted to keep it covered. We were nestled back in the trees enough that I thought that the wind should not affect the awning with the slope that I had it tilted at. It was getting late in the evening and we were getting Aiden ready for bed. Suddenly the rain started getting heavier and the winds picked up. You could hear the driving rain hitting the skylights, the sound of the rain over the roof of this motorhome, and the awning creates a constant rumble within an RV.
Right. Oh my gosh, I literally can feel the anxiety that I was feeling as you're telling this story.
Angie had asked me what was that. I told her it sounded like it was starting to hail. Progressively, a few thumps went to a massive pounding of hail hitting the roof. With the single pane glass and the 3 plastic roof vents, it sounded like it was going to break through those items. This continued for at least half an hour, and Angie had a complete anxiety attack.
Yes, I did. It was very scary. All I kept thinking was we have no vehicle to run Aiden and the dogs to, nothing to drive to get to shelter, as it would have taken a while to get slide outs in and the motorhome prepared for travel.
After going through this, we realized how extremely loud it can be inside an RV during a storm. If you are new to an RV camping in a storm, compared to your sticks and bricks home, all sounds seem like they're amplified 10 times more. There is a large difference between hearing the sound of wind blowing through the trees and feeling it in an RV.
Yeah, true.
Wind can also create flying debris. But let's move on to the solely facts and current events for more of that. And now it's time for solely facts and current events. This week's solely fact is that flying and falling debris in a storm is the #1 killer. Keep yourself protected and cover up when strong storms occur and are predicted for your area.
This week's Solely Current Event is a reminder to be sure you have a plan for you and your family if flooding is possible in the area you plan to be camping in. This takes us to the topic of the importance of having an emergency evacuation plan. Like we mentioned before, deciding what your plans are for severe weather before it hits is very important. Here are 5 questions to consider and discuss with your family or friends you will be camping with. One is, where will you go in a weather emergency? Another question, where is the safest and closest place? Remember to consider travel time when you make your plan for severe weather because of how quickly it can strike. Number 3, what is the safest route? Number 4, what if there is high water or flooding? Can you get to that location by taking that route you have planned? And number 5, if members of the family are in different areas, where is your exact meeting place? Additionally, you need to consider the construction of the building you plan to use as a shelter. Is there enough space for all the camping folks in that location? Having the answers to these questions will make plans easier and will help you determine how much time you have to get to your safe location in the event of severe weather. Remember, if the location you are camping at does not have an emergency plan, it is your responsibility to make one for you and your family. The camp host is most likely not going to visit each campsite in an emergency to tell you to seek shelter. However, some are known to drive around and alert the campground, but don't depend on that only. Communication is another big thing to think about before severe weather strikes. Here are 3 questions to ask. How will you communicate with family? If family members are in different locations, what is your plan? What if cell towers are down in your area? Keep in mind that storms can sometimes affect cell phone reception. So, if you're planning to be RV camping in a location where severe weather is imminent, make sure you have a plan with an evacuation route.
Last week, we asked you if you have ever been in an RV when severe weather hit, and we are continuing that question into this week for severe weather. We want to hear your severe weather stories while RV camping.
That's right. Leave us your story and also include if you had any type of emergency plan ahead of time, and if you tend to carry emergency supplies with you as well. We want to hear it. You can tell us your story by giving us a call or texting us at 913-303-0757. You can also head over to our Facebook Soul RV Happy Campers group and leave your response there. We just might use your questions or message on one of our episodes. Speaking of having an emergency supply on hand, let's get into emergency first aid kits that are available.
Right. Always be sure you have a first aid kit on hand for people and your pets if you bring them along. You never know when you will need supplies, and you do not want to be without them. We have first aid kits for humans and our pets. Another tip is to make sure that you have a first aid kit is always kept in the same location for every trip, ensuring that everyone knows exactly where it is at all times.
That's very important.
Additionally, you may want to have an emergency information list available as well. This list should include any known allergies, medications the people are taking, and an emergency contact list. A family safety bag. Having a family safety bag containing anything you may need in the event of severe weather ready to grab and go, and have it in a known location to all. Your family safety bag should include at least the following: extra clothing, medications, flashlight with batteries, a blanket, a NOAA weather radio with batteries charged.
Don't forget those batteries.
A cell phone charger, food or at least a snack. You never know how long you may be in a shelter. Water, at least 1 bottle per person. A battery-powered fan with batteries. Your new first aid kit for people and pets. Important documents you may need. Other specific supplies needed for each family member. Now, Angie has a story she is going to share today about the time when she did not have an emergency bag ready to go. That's coming up in the Soul Goal.
The Soul Goal. I wanted to share an experience we had with severe weather at a campground just 20 miles south of our home base. This time Mark was at work and would come to the campground after he got off work, so I was in our RV with Aiden and 4 dogs by myself. However, my parents were also camping with us in their own RV spot right next to us. I was keeping an eye on the weather because they were calling for severe storms to hit our area that day. However, they were mostly going to be north of where we were staying. I was sitting inside our camper watching the 4 o'clock news and had just looked outside and saw that my parents had come over to our campsite and were just sitting outside. Not wanting to miss the news, I hollered out the door that I would be out in a few minutes. Aiden was sleeping on the sofa in nothing but a sleeveless shirt and a diaper at that time. Suddenly, the local meteorologist broke into the newscast and stated that a tornado warning was issued for where our home is located, about 20 miles north of where we were camping, like I mentioned earlier. I remember thinking, oh, I'm so glad we're camping and not at home. I immediately called my neighbor at home just to make sure she knew to take cover. Like I said, before all the storms had been up north of us and were predicted to stay north of us, and then it happened. Our area was issued a tornado warning. Did not even hit a watch, it just went straight to a warning. Aiden's wheelchair was in our van, so I grabbed him, put him in his little tumble form stroller type chair that I had in the RV. I knew we had to hurry and seek shelter, and I was not going to mess with going out and trying to find his wheelchair and getting it inside. Remember me saying he was in a sleeveless shirt and a diaper? Yeah, I did not even get him dressed. I did not grab a blanket either. It was not cold, but it had turned much colder outside with the weather coming in. I yelled out to my parents that we were in a warning. They were shocked too, but it all came so super fast. The winds, my gosh, they were so bad. Then the rain started and it poured hard. We got Aiden into the van, basically throwing his stored wheelchair that was in the van out and getting him and his stroller inside instead. I was only partially concerned that the stroller was not made for transit and I had no way of tying his chair down in the van. I was just happy to get him in the van so we could seek shelter. We grabbed all 4 dogs we had at the time who were all terrified of mommy screaming and in complete panic mode, so not wanting to come out of hiding to get out of the RV at all. After getting them all in the van, my mom said she would ride with me and we would follow my dad, who was in his truck with their dogs. The camp host came by while we were loading up and told us to go to the shelter building across the bridge, the lake, and he would be there and let everyone inside. He also mentioned that I should put our awning in. I was like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. I care much more about getting my family to safety than our awning, or the RV for that matter. This is one of those times where you just have to make a decision about what is most important. And again, it was not the awning. We were going fast to get out of the campground and heading across the lake on the bridge when we believe is the exact moment that the microburst came over the bridge. I could not see anything. I was praying all the way across the bridge and even more of a panic mode than before. Aiden's chair was sliding all over the back with my poor mom trying to hold it in place, all while trying to keep herself balanced. It was horrifying. We finally got across the bridge and to the shelter building. As I put the wheelchair lift down, I realized I had nothing to cover Aiden with, and it was raining so hard that we could hardly see the front door of this building. Then we realized the camp host wasn't even there. My dad ran over and found the doors to be locked. A few minutes of more panicking on my part happened before the camp host arrived. My dad jumped out of his truck and just grabbed Aiden in his chair and tried to rush him inside. He couldn't see much either and ended up rolling one of Aiden's tires into the rut of the sidewalk he was on. The chair was then stuck, but we were able to get him out of it and got him moving again. By the time we got Aiden inside, he was soaked head to toe. We all were. Aiden had never even been outside in the rain before because of his medical issues, and us needing to be so careful with him not to get him sick. All I had in his bag I happened to grab was a single pair of shorts and a bunch of diapers. We ended up using diapers to dry him off, this poor child, and shorts became sort of a shirt. My poor baby, but we did what we had to do. My dad had gone back outside and brought all 4 dogs inside. Meanwhile, the place was really beginning to fill up with a ton of people. It was at that moment when I took a breath and then realized everyone was going downstairs. Downstairs. Remember, I have a child who is in a wheelchair. We are still on the main floor level. It didn't even hit me when we pulled up and went inside that this was the main level. There were only stairs, no elevator, just a ton of stairs. A few extremely sweet ladies and their grandchildren offered to take our dogs. I handed our 4 little dogs over to complete strangers who took them downstairs with them. The rest of us decided to stay upstairs. Getting Aiden downstairs would only be possible by carrying him down all of those stairs, and that was just not safe. The camp host made another point of telling me when he saw me that I should have put my awning in before I left. I get that it's important to put an awning in or high winds, but I will never stop to put an awning in a tornado warning, and I do not suggest any of you do it either. RVs can be replaced. You and your family cannot. This is about severe weather awareness, so I want to make sure that I make that clear. We believe that the worst of the storm had already happened while we were on the bridge, and that ended up being the case. We all made it out of this experience safe and sound, thanks be to God. I knew it was important to keep an eye on the weather and know the differences between an advisory, a watch, and a warning, but these experiences made me realize how incredibly important it is to have a safety plan. Having severe weather awareness and a plan can save lives.
There are some helpful slogans that work well in an emergency. We have some simple weather safety slogans that help you remember what to do when severe weather is predicted in your area. Some you may have heard before, and others we just made up. Stay alert. Don't get hurt. You are the key to your family's safety. Turn around. Don't drown.
Right.
When thunder roars, head indoors. When you see a flash, indoors you dash. If a tornado is around, go low to the ground.
Right.
If you have kiddos or grandkids, read those to them, and I bet they will remember them in an emergency and might even help all of us remember it too.
Right. Okay, now switching subjects just a little bit, we wanted to mention to all of you about Food for the Soul. We have moved this to our website at soulrv.com. You can get all the delicious recipes there. Just click on Food for the Soul on the menu.
In conclusion, again, we would like to stress that while RV camping, always remember to never try and ride out any kind of severe weather or windstorm.
Right.
Get to a safe, sturdy structure immediately if you can. Additionally, if any type of flooding is occurring or expected to occur, never try and ride those out. Seek higher ground immediately. RVs are known to tip over in higher winds because they are not on a solid foundation like a regular home, and they are known to be carried away in floodwaters. In both of these types of situations, you will most likely have no warning and will be in an emergency situation before you know it. So stay safe.
That is it for today's episode of the Soul RV Podcast. We hope that we have answered a few of your questions about why severe weather awareness while RV camping is a must in our two-part series. Get out, have fun, remember to stay safe. Thanks so much for joining us today. As always, Soul RV encourages you to safely get out and live and explore the world around you. If you'd like to check out our show notes from today's episode, just go over to soulrv.com and click underneath podcast. And make sure you follow us on social media and be sure to hit that subscribe button below.